The only concern.
Ready? Good morning and welcome, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order and we'll ask Supervisor Word to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Supervisor. Word. Okay, we'll move into our first item of business, call to the public. Is there anyone out there that wants to?
Good morning, Tony Hines, Public Works Manager. Just here to introduce you to our two new employees. These are the two positions that you approved for the parks and ball fields and stuff. So the first one we have is Joel Corbin. We stole him from the road department, so their loss and our gain. And the next one is Courtney Morton. She came from Texas. Very highly recommended from her old employer. So, again, their loss and our gain.
Excellent. Welcome to the family.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you for joining us.
All right. Anybody else? And now you got to go to work.
All right, you're out.
Have a good one.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Morning.
Erin from the Greenlee County Recorders. So I'm just coming up here to let you guys know that our 90-day notices will be going out April 22nd. We have close to almost 5,000 going out. What the 90-day notice is it's a way for us to keep our rolls clean because they can update their address. They can either opt in or opt out of being on the early vote list so they can receive a ballot by mail. And it also is a good way for people that are nonpartisans, which are independent, other, and party not designated. They can pick what ballot they would like to vote. So that's why it's important for us to send them out and get them back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Nobody else has anything. I just wanted to just say something really quickly. You know, yesterday we lost a great member of our community. Mrs. Joe Lunt passed away, and if anybody that has been in this community knows, you know, how what an impact she's made to this community. She's played, you know, piano. Well, she taught at, you know, Clifton Schools, taught music, and then has played at both churches, at every event, every Sunday. I just wanted to, you know, recognize her and the accomplishments and the impact that she's had on the community, and just pray for the family. And that's all I have.
Thank you for that, Ron.
No problem.
Go ahead.
Chairman, Board, Eric Elson, Green County Sheriff. Hey, I just wanted to give you just a quick update, a sheriff's report. I think it would be good for everybody to know where we stand with the sheriff's office and what we've been doing for our community. We have not been working traffic as much as we were because we have 5 new employees and we're training them. And so that takes them kind of out of the detail areas. We'll get back into that eventually. But we've been focusing on training that we have an adequate employee, knowing how to do his job, knowing his area. And so those little basic things. Once we get back to that, we're going to have 5 guys back on the road. And so we'll be able to hit the heavy traffic and those kinds of things again. Our investigations division, however, has been doing fantastic. And we have quite a few cases that are pending. We do have a lot of sex crimes that have been popping up, and that's been kind of rough, you know. And we also have experienced a large suicide rate in our community since January. We've had 4 suicides, guys. That's quite a bit, and there's not much we can do as sheriff's office on that. But we're going to start trying to give a little bit of mental health training to our employees on how to deal with those sorts of things. And we're gonna work with Ron on some things on how to do some public outreach to address the suicide problem. It's just kind of baffled me how much has come in. We've also had a lot of death in our community. I think we've had probably around 7 or 8 deaths as well as the suicides within our community. So it's been quite taxing on the sheriff's office and the guys seeing quite a bit of death lately. But seems like it comes and goes, and this is the time it's hitting pretty heavy on us. Another thing that we've been doing is we've been doing a lot of public outreach. Been doing a lot of community things like the Liberty Bell, and we did the skate park, just to put our goodwill to the community and show them that we are a different sheriff's office than what they used to see. But with that said, is there any questions for me? I can answer anything for the public, but I just
Not
wanted
in
to.
this setting. No interaction
I
in
call
this
it that.
setting.
Sorry, you're right. But anyways, we just want you to know that we're out there working and we're doing our best to, help our community. That's it. Thank you.
Well, thanks
Thank
for
you,
that
Sheriff.
update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Mr. Chairman, I had one other thing.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just had one other thing. Well, I do want to say that I appreciate the sheriff in reaching out and trying to get good communication out there on suicide awareness, prevention, all of that, and that's something that's near and dear to my wife and I's heart. And so I greatly appreciate you reaching out to help us to hopefully communicate that with the community. Secondly, as you mentioned traffic and all that thing, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we have a large outage coming up in April, April 20th through the 25th, and there's probably going to be roughly 800 contractors coming into this community for that week. So we're going to see those things that of people trying to find places to stay, people camping out in the Circle K parking lot, people, sleeping in the Bash's parking lot, down by the river, whatever. But anyway, just wanted to communicate that. Trying to work on gathering some information on where people can, reach out to find places to stay. But yeah, it's going to be a big one, and so we're going to have a lot of gypsies coming in, you know what I mean, that are just coming in for that 1 week into this community. So we just got to be aware of that. But that's all I have.
Thanks, Ron. Okay. Is there anybody else? All right, well, we'll move into our next item of business, the Public Health Service District. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of the Greeley County Public Health Service District and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors. Following consideration of this next item, the consent agenda, I entertain for motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
And I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. We will now reconvene as the Board of Supervisors, and we will move into our next item of business, Flood Control District. The Board of Supervisors will convene as the Board of Directors of the Greeley County Flood Control District and will reconvene as the Board of Supervisors following consideration of this next item, and I entertain for motion on this consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as listed.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. We will now reconvene as the Board of Supervisors, and we'll move into our next item of business. Derek Rapier, County Administrator, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. The National Association of Counties, several decades ago, designated the month of April as National Counties Month, with an attempt to sort of raise awareness of what county governments do and so forth. It's interesting, as we attend national conferences, there are places where most of their citizens are only vaguely aware that a county exists. That's not so in our community. There are times we field questions with citizens assuming the county's involved in something, a pothole in one of the towns or whatever. And so our presence is much more high profile than it is in other areas. Having said that, there's still much about what county government does that isn't well understood. And so this is an attempt to raise the profile of county government. And while we don't have a large celebration planned, it is proposed that perhaps the board adopt the proclamation that is in your packet, simply signifying we have, if the board passes this, a press release that will go out today as well about this month being National County Government Month.
Okay, anybody have any questions, concerns?
No, but just shocking to me when you talk about there's 330 million Americans in the U.S. ish, but there's 15 counties in Arizona, but there's across the United States there's 3,069 counties. So some of these states that we talk to have like 150 counties, and they're like
Texas,
little
250.
Yeah, 250 counties in Texas. It's crazy, but they're just very, very small. Some people have 50 people in them. Anyway, but that number is pretty shocking. So
Okay, so I entertain for motion.
I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution to acknowledge and recognize the month of April 2026 as National County Government Month.
I second that.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Okay, we will move into our next item of business. The Honorable Jeremy Ford.
Do we have
Superior Court Judge, the floor is yours.
Do we have to stand up?
All rise.
I'm actually very glad to be on this side of the bench for once. I get tired of not being able to ever present anything and always having to listen. So this is a good opportunity. All right. Glad to have this opportunity. We've been putting in work over the last couple years on trying to build courthouse security in Greenlee County. I know we've been here before. We've had the discussion before of how we're the last county in the state to have courthouse security running. But we've had some really good work put in over the last year or so working on this project. Our goal is that we start our court security process in this upcoming fiscal year, but be ready for full court security in the following fiscal year. So we're trying to make an approach that makes sense and that we can scale up to. So I'd like to go through some of what we've been doing. I can reach that, yeah. So you don't need to read that, but the first step we did is, this is the packet we put together, is we had an elected officials meeting on this issue. One of the things that was very important for us is to gauge everyone's interest in court security and security of this building, to see what everyone would like to have level of security wise. And the meetings were very, very productive. So this is just the packet we put together on our proposal for information to get it started. So here's what we got back from our elected officials meeting together as we discussed this. There was a desire for screened entry at the courthouse. So we have different levels of security. There's screening, where you're checking everyone coming through the door to see if they have weapons and things that are prohibited or not. Then there is monitoring, where you are watching to see what's going on in the building. And then there's response. There's the ability of security to respond. What we learned from the elected officials meeting is, in this building, overwhelmingly, actually exclusively of those who were, I think, in that meeting, they desired to have response and monitoring. They did not wish to have screening in this building. They thought that's the wrong feel for the annex and the offices that are here. So we changed direction a little. At first, our proposal had both buildings with screen entry. We moved it to where we would have screen entry at the courthouse and monitoring and response here. And I think everyone was not just on board, but I think they were excited at the idea that they would have that level of security. And I think that's probably the appropriate level of security for both buildings. So our goal is to set up in the courthouse screen entry with monitoring station that will allow them to monitor this building while screening that building, and to have enough manpower to be able to do both of those functions. We were able to discuss some problems. I think many people are aware of the problems. Yesterday was just a fun example of all of the problems at once. I don't know if they're trying to help me in my presentation or not, but in Superior Court we had issues. We had individuals get extraordinarily upset during a sentencing hearing for a sex offense, and we had to have what security we did have with our bailiff and things, get people out of the courtroom as the scene was beginning to unfold. Unfortunately, once we get them to the hallway without security, we have no control. So then we didn't know where those individuals going, as they were choosing at the time to engage mainly with me as a judge and let me know in all the colorful language they had what they thought about how that case was going. But once they're in the hallway, we didn't know where they were. So we had to do the hearing not knowing, were they trying to access offices? Were they going to come back in? Were we able to remove them from the building? We didn't know. We could get them to the hallway and no further. So that is one of the reasons security will be nice, because I do have a bailiff in the courtroom to protect the courtroom, but we'll be able to protect the rest of the facility and make sure that individuals who are in that situation, who have been kicked out of a courtroom, actually get kicked out of the building and aren't left wandering around where everyone else is trying to conduct work and do things. We also had a lot of noise from the alleyway. I've been told by the other elected officials we're having problems with unattended minors. And that's been true. They've been climbing on the buildings. They've been running through the alleys. We've had rock throwing and all kinds of issues that we've been hearing about. I know some of our elected officials at our last elected officials meeting indicated that they've had to open their doors, which they don't want to have to do, especially from secure locations, to holler at kids or do things because they're worried about what's going on around our buildings and around our things. So those are some of the issues that came up during our elected officials meetings. We have run into these issues and we don't have an adequate response. The response we do have has generally just been the wrong person interacting, whether it's a clerk or one of our elected officials or somebody else. We're having to interact and do our own security. So that's what we learned from those meetings, that we've had these issues already, but no major incidents, and we're grateful for that. So the next thing I did is I took meetings with the Arizona office of the court. They have their own security team. So there has been a change in courthouse security over the last decade or so, and it's improving rapidly. The Arizona office of the court has hired security professionals that work for the courts, whose goal is to train and help counties maintain their well, counties and municipalities, everyone running court maintain their own security personnel. I'm very impressed with this group of people. They're very professional. They're, in my opinion, some of the best at what they do. I had the opportunity to receive some of their training to see the quality of it. I did defensive tactics with them, so they got to teach me how to do some of the fighting training and other things they give to security guards and things like that. I got to use pepper spray and do all kinds of stuff. So I went through some of their programs and had a chance through that to evaluate the quality of their training, their facilities, and what they're doing. And I was impressed with what they have to offer. I did learn that the training they provide to counties is free. They do provide some of the accommodations. They require some of the travel expenses to go to the county. So it's a bit of a shared expense there. And they did come in 2025 and do an evaluation of our building as it was. Of course, we just failed the evaluation. We knew we were going to fail the evaluation. We don't have security. Having said that, they are very willing to come back and work with us. They are not, the feeling I got from them, they weren't here to judge us or tell us we're doing wrong. They're just resources. They're very helpful. And I said, as we move away from what we had before to something new, are you willing to partner up, be out here, help us evaluate what we're doing and how we're doing it? And we got a resounding yes. They're willing to come back. They're willing to be here for us and give us everything we need as we build out our own security project. So I'm grateful for them and the oversight that's available there. Then we went on a security outreach throughout the state. So I sent my bailiff around to other counties to say, let's look at everyone's security. Let's do an evaluation of what everyone's doing. We didn't go to all the counties. There's no reason to go to Maricopa, Pinal, Pima. They're going to be scaled at a size that makes no sense for Greenlee County, but I wanted to know what the other small counties were doing. So we hit not all of them. We avoided the western edge of the state because that's far, but most of the rest of them we actually got to. I won't bore you with all the pictures from every site visit we did and all the interviews, but one of our goals was to ask, we are creating our security project. What did you wish you knew when you started yours? What have you learned? What's good, what's bad, what works, what doesn't? So we know what to do for security going forward and hopefully do this right from the beginning. So just a few things we see. This is Apache County's entrance. You'll see at almost every entrance but one. A couple things. You'll see a metal detector, which we see there, and you'll see an x-ray machine, and then you'll see a monitoring station. So those three features are present at pretty much every security station except one that we see around. In our county, the thought is, and I say the thought because I'm going to go over later how I want to get to where we have entry like this, is that we'll probably end up doing this in the basement of the courthouse. It's our only handicap accessible entrance, so it's probably the only one available. It'll probably be indoors. We do have the space inside that central area to build out an entrance that looks like this. We will lose a little space. I know we meet there as elected officials and things a lot. We'll still have quite a bit of space in that room, but it won't have the same character it does right now. But that's the space we have without building some sort of new building or something else, and we want to utilize what we have. So again, screening space, we see those x-ray machines. That is the cameras in that courthouse showing the monitoring that they're able to do from that station. We saw two different formats, some that they monitor from separate rooms, screen in one room, monitor for another. I don't think we want that kind of personnel where we would have enough people to do both. I think we're going to have to monitor from where we screen, and I think that makes the most sense to save money and save personnel by not trying to do that in different locations. So here we have another setup. We're up in Coconino County at this point. This is what their entrance looks like. Similar features, as you see. They have multiple lanes. We're going to be a one-lane kind of court. These machines, I've talked to many counties, seen what they cost. They're fairly expensive. They're about $50,000 to purchase one of these machines, and then there is a maintenance agreement that seems for most counties to be about $1,000 a year. It probably depends on a lot of factors as everything to keep these things up. You'll see one county did not have one of these machines. The issue is if you have one of these machines, your employees do not have to personally get into people's belongings very much. It increases the privacy for those who are coming in. It also increases the safety for the employees who are going through people's purses. Unfortunately, people who come to court very often will have in their property things you do not want to get stuck with, poke with, or touched. And these allow screening without as much touching. So my conversations with our security gurus to say, how much do you want one of these machines? They say quite a bit. They think the liability of not having one may outweigh, that the risk outweighs the cost, because then you are getting into people's bags and doing a lot of that, which it'll take one bad incident from that to cost more than the machine would have cost to have, and it's a safety issue. But those are X-ray machines. This is just an example of a monitoring station away from the entrance. Probably not what we're going to focus on. Flagstaff Municipal Court, one municipal court we went to, similar in approach to what we may have as far as one X-ray machine, one metal detector, and the screens. We have already obtained the metal detector. We got that through grant from the Arizona office of the court. So we're grabbing from grant whatever they're willing to give us. We will continue to put in for as much equipment as they're willing to give us for free. Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, but we're getting what we can. This is Graham County's approach. The one thing I really like about their approach is they built out a vestibule with ballistic glass. You'll notice they are the one county that's missing that X-ray machine. So they are actually physically checking people's belongings through those windows. They pass the person, go through it, pass it back out. Our preference would be for X-ray screening, but I think that this is actually a really good idea how they built this out to give the staff a safe place to sit. If somebody were to come in or do things, that they have some advantage. If there are armed guards there, they could, for example, if somebody came in with a weapon, it would give them a chance to be ready to respond if somebody just burst through the door as they're behind ballistic glass. So this is what they had built out. We did get a hold of the quotes that they received for their project. We have that available. I am not going to bore you or flood you with all the research we did. We did far too much to bring it all to this meeting, just an overview. But this is Graham County's look for what their security looks like. They have the metal detector there. And there we go. Navajo County. I really like Navajo County's setup. I've been to their court. I think they do a good job. They have, once again, their monitoring station, the X-ray, and the metal detector all together at the front. You do know from a few years ago, they are the ones that did have a shooting at their courthouse just outside of this security area. Okay, and there's somebody who looks like he wishes he wasn't in the court, but yeah. Yavapai County we're trying to get a guy who looks like him that just says don't try it. If you know one, we're searching. So Yavapai County setup. So similar setup you see throughout the different courthouses with different levels of staffing and everything like that. So one of the questions we came to is who runs security? Which department does it fall under? Originally, I had a very strong impulse to not want to have this under the courts because who wants to manage the security department? We thought maybe built facilities here would be a good landing spot. We talked to the sheriff's office. Maybe they're a good landing spot with the training they had. But as I met with the Arizona office of the court, I realized that there's statutory advantage to bring it under the court recently. And this is a fairly new law, ARS 12-299.10 was passed. And this gives special statutory authority and protections. I did not put everything in the statute that you need to know, but just in general, I summarized that a grant certified court security officer, so it created that under statute as a real thing. They have powers in the performance of their duties. These officers may, with reasonable cause, detain a person on the premises for a reasonable time to contact a law enforcement officer and maintain the safety and well-being of persons in judicial branch facilities, on judicial branch grounds, or where a court is convening. The statute authorizes certified court security officers to respond to threats and emergencies involving judicial branch employees in these locations. So there's other advantages, but in general, there's some protection here. There's some immunities that are also in the statutes and other things that we don't get otherwise. And so I realized that if we had the sheriff's office do it, they don't fall under the statute, nor do they benefit from the training that AOC is able to offer because they want to train their own within the branch. They will do some training for those outside, but it's limited, and their certifications are limited and what they can do are limited. So there's some statutory advantages for it being within the branch. One county you probably noticed was missing from our tour is Gila County. You know, they're a neighbor, they're close. They use private security. I'm hearing nothing but problems with the use of private security companies running this. One, they don't fall under the statute, so they don't get these protections. Number two, they have a real disconnect between what the private security company will allow or authorize their employees to do and what court security expects people to do. So they essentially say, we'll do screening only. We don't want to be kicking people out, putting hands on people, responding in emergencies with force or anything like that. So it kind of led to you wonder what they're paying for kind of conversation. So after talking to the AOC folks and everything else. It sounds like private security. They're not the only court that runs it. One of the only counties that uses a private security company. Seemed like a good way to go, but in practice, it hasn't worked out well. And in fact, most of the private security vendors have not been able to get certified because their security company won't let them do the kind of things that would let them be certified. They said, we're not going to do all the defensive tactics training. We're not going to do this for their own liability. They're just kind of saying no, no, no. And then they can't get the certifications we would like them to have because they're very, very limited out of the private sphere. So we did not include Gila County setup. It is a private security company, and from what I heard, it's just not working out that well, at least from court security perspective. So we decided we probably need to bring this in-house. One of the issues I have is I have 2 employees who work directly for Superior Court. I do have my court administrator, Ms. Romo. She'll be spearheading this project moving forward, so you'll probably hear a lot from her as we have all the rest of the things to do. And then I have my bailiff. He has about 1 million titles. He really does, because we put a lot on him, Mr. Warreña. And those are our employees. There we go. And so he's our court technology specialist. He's about everything you can imagine. So under these 2, I'm worried about the ability to simply supervise a security department. This is who we have. They're wonderful. They're completely full up on their responsibilities right now. So that was one of the advantages of thinking maybe a sheriff's officer or someone else who has supervisors. But as we thought about it, what I'd like to propose in a meeting with the county manager, had a discussion of maybe we hire a chief security officer or somebody in a management position. Originally, I was thinking just security guards, but I think what we need is a manager of security. And hopefully they can do something that would help manage security all around the county. Even though some county offices will be monitoring, some may be response only if they're not in this building, others will be subject to screening. So if we have this individual, they would be able to oversee our security program, hire people, fire people, manage, and we wouldn't put all that up into Superior Court where we're generally focused on what happens in court filings and cases and all those kind of things. We got hold of information, gives you a little tour around the state. This isn't all of it, but I did look at what individuals are making for security officers around the state as we decide on what to ask for to be able to pay. The bottom line on most of those are what the chief security officers will make. We're not asking to begin with the bare minimum of what some of the chief security officers make. The $52,000, if you look at Cochise, would be below their midpoint, but above their lowest, because we want to start with somebody who can help us build this program. This first step is going to be the key. They're going to build a program. They're going to do our policies. They're going to help us with the physical build out. They're going to do everything we need to get security going. And of course, there's counties who pay chief security officers far more than others. Another issue we have is we're competing directly, like all our offices, with Freeport. They do hire security officers. They do have a security team. We're not trying to match their salaries. We kind of look more around the counties for an adequate match, but hoping we could have one position that will be able to attract. And who we're looking for is fairly specific. We're looking for a retiring officer. That's what we're hoping to find, somebody who was in law enforcement before, somebody who has this experience, somebody who's hopefully collecting retirement, so whatever we're able to offer looks attractive for an experienced person and will allow them to double dip. We are in a different retirement system than PSPRS or the corrections officers system, so it will give us a chance, and that's who we're looking to run this program. No guarantees we'll find any. However, I am encouraged. I have started testing the waters to see who might we have available, talking to retired and retiring officers, and we've already found interest from 2 different individuals who have a generic interest. We have not told them what it would pay, so heavens knows that they still have interest at certain levels, but we have seen some retiring law enforcement who are interested, one from corrections and one from who would be coming out of more of the law enforcement world, some interest. So we'd post out the job if it's approved and see who we can hire and see if we can get the best. One of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to start this project. At first, I was thinking we'd hire this person maybe a quarter before we start screening people into the courtroom. That would have been in the next fiscal year, near the end of the fiscal year. As I met with the county manager, I think it was suggested, and I think it's wise, that this will be better started early, because by the time we're going to hire them in the last quarter, we may have done lots of the build out, lots of the policies, lots of the things, and we would have not given this person any input in the security program. Instead, I think it would be wiser to hire this person starting on July 1 and allow them the year to build out their program. They're going to have to find their security officers, come up with uniforms, just as you saw through the pictures, various uniforms, various things. They're going to have to oversee the physical improvements that are going to need to happen to make it happen. And if they have input, that if they don't like it in the end, they'll have to live with it. They help create it. And I think it'd be very helpful because lots of this we're doing right now is court administrators, as superior court judges. It's not necessarily our area of expertise. And it's a lot of time we put into this project to get here. It'd be very nice to have somebody to turn the project over to and let them continue to run. It would also give us, as of July 1, the response. Would have partial monitoring. One person can only do so much monitoring, especially where we have these other tasks, and it would give response that for the next year people could call and have a security officer respond until they're able to hire their other people. We'd also like to create a department for court security. This would sit under Superior Court, but be its own department, have its own budget, manage its own budget, interact with the board through court security and things. I think it's best done that way. I wouldn't want to confuse the budget of this department with Superior Court's direct budget. I think that they're just so different in our tasks and what we do. Eventually, having talked to the Arizona Office of the Court and other counties, it appears we would probably need 3 employees to be able to adequately run court security. We have a lot of decisions to make. One of the issues is some of the offices here are on 410s. Other ones are on the court schedule, which is the traditional 40-hour-a-week schedule. We have to have coverage while the buildings are open. So we're going to look to see how to accomplish that. We also have sick and vacation and everything else. The goal would be, in the end, I think, and I like a lot of this to be developed by our court chief security officer, will be to have one person always at the entrance monitoring the cameras and another person able to walk the buildings, check things, respond to calls, and then to have the ability to cover shifts. And my guess is, like all offices, we're going to have large periods of time where all 3 positions are not full at once. We're hoping with our chief security officer, we achieve stability in a position, and if the other positions turn over, because they're going to be more entry-level kind of positions, that we'll be able to manage turnover with at least somebody who's stable. I have talked to probation. They are willing to help fill gaps and holes where people are sick, and we get down to 1 person that we can keep our security running with some gap filling and hole filling where we can, although it's not their primary responsibility, and that would be limited what they could do as well, but they are very willing to help. So the idea of the department is to serve the needs of Greenlee County security with screen entry at Superior Court, monitoring here at the court annex, response anywhere they're needed, and then training and planning for all department regarding security issues. I would like them to be able to do our active shooter trainings, all of those kind of things. One of the things that the Arizona Office of the Court allows us to do is it allows us to have our court security officers certified in many things, including defensive tactics and others. So they can actually become certified trainers, and they can bring that training around. And to the extent we want to pass that training on to anyone in our other departments or other things, we can do those kind of things. So there's a lot of exciting things that court security, I think, can offer once they're up and going. And then the next thing we'll need to do is capital improvement. This is a complicated project. What we're asking for is we're asking budgetary money be set aside. We're not asking for permission to spend. We're going to come individually and ask for every project, everything we need to spend money on. I asked the Arizona Office of the Court, other counties, realistically, how much money do we think we're going to spend to build vestibules, buy x-ray machines, equip new officers, get the desks and everything. There's some really complicated issues. We're going to have to change the entrances and how we access different parts of the building. To get down to 1 secure entrance, the buildings will no longer be able to have members of the public walk between one building and the other. That would require 2 secured entrances. That's very expensive. But we like key card entry for employees to be able to move between buildings and do things like that. All of those upgrades, unfortunately, are far too expensive. We've key carded other doors before. It's not cheap. Doors we lock have to maintain the ability to exit for fire safety purposes. So Graham County, for example, has alarmed. There are other doors. You can walk out of doors that you can't come into, but it will set off an alarm. That way we know if you're opening it for somebody else to let somebody in where they have not had security screening. So we're going to have to update a lot of doors to have that kind of alarm and things. So I genuinely do not know what the total cost is going to be. When I put a $300,000 number, I think that's my best estimate of what it may cost. I think hopefully that's on the generous end of what it may cost, and it won't cost that. But I'm asking for budgetary elbow room, because at the end of the day, as we do this project, there is always the question of, was it budgeted? Is it in the budget? And I'd like to make sure there's room that we can start screening next year, and that the chief security officer will then return to the board every time they need to buy something. For example, that x-ray machine, if it's approved, will be about a $50,000 purchase. I don't know what the cost today, but talk to other counties, how much did yours cost? And that seems to be in the ballpark. So we'll have funds needed for that and the other things that we'll need to get this court security done. So hopefully that wasn't too long of a presentation. I have far more information and I can answer a whole lot of questions if you have lingering questions. What I'm asking the board specifically for today is just the approval of the chief security officer position, so we can post that out, get that going, and that as we move forward in budgets this year, that we set aside budgetary money that we could ask the board to access later as we go forward trying to get this project done.
I'd like to make a comment. Gosh, Jeremy, he says, I don't think you missed the beat on what this is going to take to do this department per se. Are we the only county that doesn't have security?
Yes.
Currently, really? That's what I kind of figured.
We're it, and we've gotten some big reactions. I know we've shared them before, and the county manager has been very good at working with us to try to get this project done. But I have had out of county judges. We have to get conflict judges to handle cases I can't handle. It's a small county. I have plenty of conflicts. I handle a lot of cases for other counties as well in return. But I've had judges tell me, I won't return to your courthouse unless there's security. They didn't realize there wouldn't be. They walk in the door, and it may be a decade or more for some of them, maybe never, that they've walked into a courthouse without security. And so that's left them feeling not great. We're used to it. This is what we're accustomed to. They're not accustomed to it. I know our Chief Justice had a question the other day about security when she found out we had none. She should have known. Our county manager pointed out she's been here, but they get. But
She came through the same doors we all
high level
did.
people, they get it let in special doors and everything else. They don't always see security, but she was actually fairly surprised when she learned that there was no security at the Greenlee County Superior Courthouse. So it is the standard. You see all the way down to most municipal courts actually now have security. Not the small ones like Clifton, but most municipal courts are running with a security. All the way down to towns like Nogales and stuff, they have security at all those kind of courts and all those places. So we're one of the, not just Superior Courts, we're one of the few, I think, significant courts that don't have any security right now.
You know, and in this day and age right now, with things that are going on in our world, I think there's a dire need for it, and so I don't know. You gentlemen have any questions or concerns in regards to Jeremy's presentation?
Mr. Chairman, back to this day and age, I think it's time to move forward with this.
Let's not wait for something to happen.
I would hate to have, exactly as Ron says, I'd hate to have something happen and then say, hey, maybe it's time to do it. So I think proactive is the key here.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Ron.
No, I had a couple questions. Well, one, first, I greatly appreciate the detail of this presentation and everything, because we've been talking about it for many years. That there's been a need there, right? But we didn't know exactly what the ask was, you know what I mean, and the plan. And so I really appreciate the detail and the detailed ask, because that's good that we can react to that. Just a quick question: that the court security officer, can they carry a weapon?
They can. They don't have to. So I want to hire for sure a chief security officer who can carry a weapon.
Yeah.
Once again, a retired officer. I'm looking for somebody who can. Now, it depends on, in the future, what budget they're working with, who they're hiring. We don't know what's going to be available. We hope to get the best of the best for security, but we're not going to be asking for the funding that would necessarily attract the best of the best. What we may get is retired officers and things. We want a whole lot of those. Those will be armed. We may get a lot of those young men and women between the ages of 18 and 21 when they're allowed to be certified police officers, who sometimes they're in the jails. They may choose to be in court security for that period of time and get the training. What I want to have happen is our chief security officer screen who they have and say, how comfortable are we with this person being armed? Now, there is a program through the Arizona Office of the Court that you have to certify to be able to be armed. So we don't just arm willy-nilly. You can't just arm on the first day. You have to go through their training. They offer the training. There's an initial court security officer training just to be this court security officer we put them through. And then there's an additional one for firearms training. Mr. Warrenia has been through it. He's certified to carry a weapon. When I started as judge, there was exactly 0 armed people in the judiciary. Probation had nobody armed. The courtroom had nobody armed. The only armed person in these 2 buildings that we know of was generally Eric Ellison as my investigator at the time. And that was it. So we've increased. Probation is now armed and has gone through the training. The bailiff is now armed. But I would want to give the goal, I think in the end, is that we have as many armed security officers as we can safely train and be confident that this person should be armed. It is possible that we hire people who our chief security officer says at the time, not yet, or maybe not. Maybe they're good for screening, but this isn't somebody we want to arm. And even if we do, if they don't pass the qualifications, they can't be. They have to get through qualifications, and not everyone would necessarily qualify, and they'd have to make a decision, do we want to keep that employee on without that or not? So in a perfect world, my preference is yes. I think as many trained and armed people in these buildings is better, but it just depends on if we can get their chief security officer, absolutely.
I agree. And as well with the chief security officer, are they I know that their primary focus will be setting up the program and setting up security for the courts, right? And that's under that statute and everything that to focus on that. But would they be over the whole building, over this whole building?
Yeah, so the goal is that we get the camera systems, and this will take some of the setup money too. I would like every camera that's in either of these buildings, and if possible, maybe every camera that the county has, monitored, routed into their security station. We have an office. We did part ways with a position we had in Superior Court before. We lost some state funding for it. We had a lot more county funding and state funding for it, but we decided the position didn't make sense anymore to maintain, and that's a position we're no longer maintaining. That's freed up office space for us. We've done some horse trading with probation to move them into the office we think is most appropriate. So the chief security officer has an office available. It's under the stairs in the basement that we're going to be using for that. It's possible in a perfect world. I would like to see actually the monitors, because it's not a huge expense to do, both in that office available to the chief security officer if he's in his office and not at monitoring stations. That person will come and go from the monitoring stations. One, if they don't have enough employees, they'll probably be at the monitoring station all day. But if they do, they'll have some freedom to go between. And then at the monitoring stations, I'd like those same cameras up. I think as many cameras as we can route to there, the better. If you look at some of those prior courts, I'll show you real fast, you'll see an incredible amount. There's a good example of camera. I flew past it. All right.
Right there.
Of cameras all on the same one. You can monitor quite a few cameras at once. If you get more monitors, some courts had even more, there we go, even more areas looked at. So I would like to see as many county cameras as we have being monitored. There's not a lot of reason not to just generally monitor. One of the complaints I received from one county, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, is that their employees mostly sit there and play on their phones. They're not doing anything. That would not be the standard we're going to hold our people to. We're going to have monitoring stations up, and we expect monitoring to be happening at monitoring stations. So there's always something to do. One may say there's not that much going on at Greenlee County Superior Court. Some days there's not that many cases. There's not that much in and out of the court building. But there is always a lot of county camera to monitor. The other goal is, as we have people, is I want to do physical walkarounds these 2 buildings on regular times. They may vary what the time is, but I think we should be walking around the outside of the building and the inside of the building at regular intervals to see, do we have people just hanging around who shouldn't be there? I've told the story before, but I was once ambushed by somebody in the hallway with a bike. They had a full bicycle. They were just waiting for the judge in the hallway of the court, standing there with a bicycle. Security would have seen that. They had waited apparently for some time as we checked the cameras and stuff to ambush me in the hallway to let me know that their siblings should get out of jail and that they shouldn't be where they are right now. That's the kind of thing we want security to be able to catch. As elections get close, I think it'll be very beneficial for our elections department and others that we have security monitoring. And then response, which is big, because like I said, yesterday we heard somebody thought it was cats for a minute, one of the attorneys, but it was kids. They were just making an incredible ruckus. They were on courthouse grounds. They were running around doing all kinds of things. Right now we have nobody to respond. One of us, any of us, can go yell at them, but with what immunities, with what authority,
Right.
with what uniform, with what, it just doesn't, you send security around and say, okay, guys, clear it out. Or let the kids know, you're welcome to be here. We have courthouse grounds, but you can't be climbing on buildings, you can't do this, you can't do that, and kind of monitoring that. So that's the idea that we want, and that's what the elected officials here in this building ask for, is to say, please monitor our areas and please be willing to respond. So I hope that they do good monitoring here. The other thing, as we're fully staffed with 3 employees, the annex in Duncan, what I've told our justice of peace there is they have a better setup. Their building's just built better. It was designed well. It was done at a time when security in mind, so they have way better security features than our clerk's office and others have. It's well designed. They weren't asking for the same level of security. They weren't asking for it. They weren't looking for it. But what I said is, you can call on our security team here. There are courts down there as well. And if you need them, we'll send them down, saying, today we have the hearing. We have the big case coming through. They started a preliminary hearing there. If a murder case starts in Duncan, it's going to go to their court first. And we can send security personnel there. We can leave 1 to monitor here. We can send the other 2 to run security at their building during times of need. Those same officers could be available for other things as we need security. So that would be the goal, is that we have a security team that can go and do, and then hopefully offer any other help to assistance anybody needs. Evaluations and things can be useful. Somebody says, hey, we've got election night going on. Can we have a security officer at Vote Central? Could we have, can somebody look at our procedures and see if this is any good? The one thing I really like about that AOC program is they train, and they train well, and their goal is to make our trainers as good as their trainers. They're trying to bring out the people to do what they do. So my hope is that our chief security officer becomes somebody who can really provide that service just all throughout the county. Anyone who needs help with security, they'll at least be a resource.
Yeah. The only one other question that I had was the separation of the courts building and the annex. We talked about key carding, those any doors. We want our employees to be able to go back and forth, in between those buildings. But then anybody outside of our employees need to go through the screening, the main one main entrance, right, to go through screening. You mentioned that I don't know if they're key carded now. I mean, are there doors separating? I don't know. It's my ignorance, but I had never looked right at her. But they're not key carded. But that's something we
yes.
have to do.
But they could be key carded.
Yeah.
Yes, and the main one I was looking at, and once again, lots of this I want to turn over to hopefully a more trained professional than me, because I'm afraid there's lots of things I probably don't know. We've done our best to educate ourselves to answer these questions, but the old jail is right there, has a heavy metal door. It's after you go down that little flight of stairs in the breezeway. I think that's probably our best door to key card. It will give us some notification if we may have to fire alarm that one. It may be one of the ones that fire code's going to say we have to have the ability to get through. So it would give us some notice if somebody did breach it, that the alarm would go off and put some distance from Superior Court to allow security response between those two. And because it's down that hallway and nothing else is in between those things, I think we could get good signage to tell the public turn around before they get to that door, so they don't have to go to a door and shake the handle. I think we get some good signage to say county employees only beyond this point, and that way we can stop them at the top of those stairs. Yeah. Those stairs have their own problems anyway. They're not handicap accessible, so we thought about other entrances, and that was the big barrier of why it has to be the basement of the courthouse, because there is no other accessible entrance.
Right. Okay, that's all that I had. Thank you.
You have anything, Will?
No, just want to make sure we are being proactive and moving forward. It sounds like this has been a front subject for a long time, and time to address it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I want to also commend Judge Ford on the thoroughness of what he's looked at. I mean, this has been talked about since Rob Stokes was the county administrator, and I think the world has changed. The challenge has always been, and we've always kind of thrown up our hands, is that we've got a 115-year-old building that was not built, either for ADA requirements or for security requirements. It was a different world then. Unfortunately, we're still on the same hill with the same awkward access. And some of those challenges have felt more insurmountable than the problem warranted. I think with the world changing as it has, we've had several instances over the years that raised the attention of the security issues. And I think the capital ask that will show up later in our discussion, the budget discussion, is probably a good starting point. It may not be the ending point. Some of these doors, for example, key carding, the double doors going in that you're used to going in down in the old building, that's a historic original build door. How we get those in, and Sheriff can tell you a slight horror story about the octopus that sits in his office, where they tried to retrofit some magnetized doors into the old frame. They are challenges. I think they're overcomable challenges, but I really want to express my appreciation for having a partner who's thought this stuff through, done the legwork to say, there's a way to solve these problems, and I think the capital ask is probably appropriate. I don't know it'll be the end of the capital ask by the time we get done of it. So,
Okay. If there's not anything else to discuss, thank you, Jeremy, for all the information provided, and I entertain for motion.
I'd like to,
may I make a suggestion that we put off a specific? This will be built into the budget for the coming year, but this is a fiscal ask. I think if the board gives us direction to staff to build this into the budget, we will present it as part of the overall budget plan. Like I say, the capital part will be presented in our budget work session today. But you're looking to hire beginning of the first fiscal year, right?
That's our goal, would be to post out now, but not to hire until we're in the next budget year, to stay out of this budget year, to make no adjustments have to happen.
Okay.
technically, that's only about 90 to 120 days from now anyway, right?
It's not long.
Yeah.
It will,
not long.
it will take us that long, and honestly, one of our candidates who expressed some interest would need to retire. Is actively there, so we wanted enough time to post out and to allow interviews to happen with an understanding that this job could not start until the new fiscal year begins, because the budgeting request is for next fiscal year, not this fiscal year.
I think we understood that.
Yeah. Okay.
But we need a motion to approve the position
You do need a motion to approve the position with permission to hire as of the fiscal year.
based on the information provided, as far as.
Correct.
As presented.
As presented.
Yep.
All right. Motion.
Well, I move that we approve of the, creating the position of Chief Security Officer in the fiscal year 26-27, but to be posted right away based on the presentation provided by the Honorable Judge Ford.
I second that motion.
Is that enough for you? Okay.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. So ordered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Judge Ford.
Okay. Where's the illustrious, there he is. Reed snuck in, or has he been sitting there?
He's been sitting
He's
there.
been sitting there, but just very quietly.
All right, we got Reed Larson, County Engineer. The floor is yours.
Good morning, gentlemen. We desire to pave 2 turnouts off of ADOT highways. One's on State Route 75 into the fairgrounds. The other one's on State Route 78 into our new Public Works building. We're not ready to do this work quite yet, but it's advantageous to identify a contractor so that we can list them on our permit application to ADOT. If we don't do that, ADOT will process our permit. Then we find a contractor. Then we have to resubmit that permit with the contractor added. So we're trying to get out in front of that and select a contractor in the near future, include his information on the ADOT permit. And the goal is to get the turnout on 75 into the fairgrounds paved or in time for our next county fair. And we don't want it to be an urgent last minute thing. So this is kind of a hybrid model like we've used it in the past with pretty good success, where our Public Works folks will build the embankment, place and compact the AB, and then this contractor that we select will come in and pave on top of that AB. And the county will provide the traffic control and other odds and ends.
Okay.
Well, I move that we approve to solicit bids, proposals, quotes for the asphaltic concrete paving of 2 turnouts in ADOT right-of-way, one off of State Route 75 to the fairgrounds and one off State Route 78 to the Public Works facilities.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Larson.
Okay, we will move into our next item of business. David Manus, Public Works Roads Manager, and his assistant.
Morning, everybody. My name's David Manus, Public Works Roads Manager. I got on the agenda today. We're going to do things a little bit different this year. We're wanting to do things a little bit different. I got on the agenda to ask permission to purchase oil, and I'll explain a little bit about it. When other years we've gone out for bid for oil, and this year, because of the situation with the war, when I started talking to some of the big players in the oil industry, getting quotes for the town of Duncan and ourselves and whatnot, I noticed how high the oil prices are versus other years. Well, in other years, I've looked at the state contracts, but I've compared them with the bidding process, and it seems like when you put the big players together, I've seen them beat that state contract. When they all start bidding against each other, we've actually been able to get the oil cheaper. So with the situation we're in now, I got a hold of the Pinal County state contract, and I looked at the oil price on it, and when I started talking to some of the big players, Western Emulsions, Quality Emulsions, the price of oil was up to $678 a ton. On the Pinal County state contract, we could get it for $516, I believe now, $516 a ton. So with that being said, I think this year our best bet will to piggyback off a Pinal County contract and purchase oil from Western Emulsions, who has that contract.
If I might add to that,
Oh, I just wanted to ask a quick
You bet.
question. If you go out and solicit in that manner that you just mentioned, will they hold to that price till you're gonna use it?
Yes, sir. That changes every 3 months, and it just changed 1st of April to 517, and in 3 months from now, it'll change again on that contract.
Yeah. Okay, Derek?
so from a procurement point of view, Pinal County's already gone through the process of competing. They have a very sophisticated purchasing department where they handle procurement for all the different departments. They put out bids. And so this oil contract was already awarded in a competitive process. As I understand, the supplier had some of that oil left and was willing to sell it to us at the price that Pinal County had bargained for. We already tested the market and realized that if we go out to bid, given the current circumstances, they may change by tonight, who knows, but current circumstances, would be paying a significant amount more, about 20 to 25% more. And so we would then, like I say, piggyback or use the competitive bid process that Pinal County's already used to purchase this oil from a supplier that we've used in the past and has shown to do good work with us.
Okay.
We've got such a good, we've got, over the years, we've gotten such a good work relationship with these oil suppliers. And when talking to them, they even suggested to me that, hey, that's what you guys need to do, because we can't beat that with the price of oils right now. So with all that being said, on the agenda today, I'm requesting permission to purchase oil emulsions from Western Emulsion Incorporated for the 2026 chip seal project. you guys don't got any more questions.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Do it.
I move that we purchase oil emulsions from Western Emulsions Incorporated for the 2026 chip seal project under the existing Pinal County contract.
I second that.
Okay, motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes
Alright.
have it, so ordered.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Thank you very much, Mr.
So you
David.
guys know, with 400 tons of oil, that's anywhere from a $44,000 to a $50,000 difference. So, county saving money there.
Yeah.
It worked out good.
Good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
good deal, David. Good job. Okay. We will now move into our next item of business. Tony Hines, Public Works Fleet and Facilities Manager. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Tony Hines, Public Works Parks Manager. We had gone out for bid for the ball field and the multi-purpose field for the Duncan Park, and we got absolutely no responses. So what we have is a proposal from Peterson Landscaping to do those two fields.
And that's who did the first field,
Correct, yes.
right?
Yeah,
Let me
he-
expand on that just a bit. We did get a response, it was late. And it wasn't sealed, it was by email. It was in response to our bid notification. But under the bidding rules we have, the board would have to excuse that, failure to submit it timely. The sealed portion protects the contractor more than it protects us. That way they can submit a proprietary bid and not have their competitors look at it. So I think that the non-sealing part of it helps them more than us. But they were due on a Wednesday and this showed up on the following Monday.
Correct, yes.
So it wasn't like it came in at 5:05, it was a little bit late. But to continue under that bid process and the projected price puts us in a bid, process under our procurement code, but you'd have to excuse the late submission of the bid.
What was his excuse?
Really didn't have any excuse. I think there was just some confusion in there, but that's just my opinion.
Someone we've dealt before with?
He put
Yeah,
in
he
the
built
field.
the first field
Oh,
and
Yeah.
the Loma Linda field.
okay,
And he was the only bidder.
Yeah.
all right. Okay, well, with everything that's been said, I entertain for motion.
I'd like to move regarding the bid for construction of the softball field, multi-purpose field at the Duncan Fairgrounds. Do I need to say who do we bring?
To award that to, yeah.
To award that to Peterson Construction,
Peterson.
and I don't have the amount in front of me, as presented.
May I also suggest that you specifically excuse the delay in submission?
And we excuse the delay in submission, right?
Do we want a not to exceed amount? It's 210, right?
That's the actual amount.
That's the actual?
Yeah.
So, in the amount of,
So not to exceed the amount of 220,000?
That would work.
yeah.
Yeah.
I second
Not to
that.
exceed the amount of 220.
Okay, I second that.
Okay, motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Thank you, Tony.
Get them done.
Thank you very much, Tony.
All right. Move to our next item of business. Austin Adams. Administrator.
Morning, Austin Adams. Going over presenting of the IT Director / Chief Information Officer. There was a meeting held last week with all the elected officials that attended regarding IT. Some of those comments that came out of that, as well as some of the things that we've been dealing with lately, has shown the need for a position as such, right? This position, the idea behind it would be, it's worded in a way that's such a way that it can interface with BITS. It's also worded in a way that it can run on its own. And so the idea behind this would be kind of a lot of the work that I've been trying to do, interfacing with BITS, but somebody that has a lot more technical knowledge that can really understand the framework that runs at the county to help run more efficiently. And again, some of the issues we've had, again, minor issues, but things that they can be on top of that will be their wheelhouse. Looking over this, we looked at our different salary scales. When I compare it to other counties, our numbers look like 93 to 137. That's a loose range, but that's approximately where this position falls. Trying to think if there's anything else I should mention. Do you guys have any questions on what that is? I know Chairman Gomez sat in on that meeting, so he's a little bit more aware of some of the background to this. But is there any other questions on that position and kind of the idea behind that position? I know Derek may have some comments as
I
well.
was just gonna say before you pop up with something, Derek's on this. Also, you have anything
Yes.
to add to it?
What we're really looking for here is to improve the interface between the county infrastructure and IT, as well as our IT interface with outside agencies. For example, the Auditor General. We have an inter-county group that works on cybersecurity, and so a lot of the primary responsibilities for this position would be that interface, both internally and externally. Maintaining documentation that will be needed for audits, those kinds of things. BITS is doing that work, but we found that sometimes the interface, because they're not our employees, has been occasionally problematic. At times, it's been outstanding, but we want to focus on both the internal interface as well as the external interface with the position.
Mr. Chairman, is the plan to post this right away and somebody possibly start in this fiscal year?
Yes,
We have budget.
correct. We have the budget capacity as indicated in the request form. There are unexpended funds in our IT budget that would cover this position between now and the end of the fiscal year, provided we can find a person to do this. This is these kind of positions are hard to fill sometimes, and so absolutely we have the funding to do it.
I think it's important. I think same with security IT is not going to get any easier. It's going to be in all of our lives more and more often, and so I think we need to proceed with that.
Do you have any questions or concerns?
I echo Supervisor Campbell's comments. I think it's time, and I think it's been a little bit overdue. So I support also moving forward.
Well, I entertain for motion.
I move that we approve to establish the position of IT director, Chief Information Officer, and permission to fill the position in the current fiscal year or as soon thereafter as possible.
And I second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Derek. Okay.
Chairman, as a footnote to that, we've done our best to try and gauge the market on this. There's a chance we fall outside of that parameters we've talked about, but we will do our best to stay within those parameters. But we'll keep you abreast of that as we go.
Understood.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right, next item of business, Derek Repair, and Bianca, the floor is yours.
I will keep the legislative side somewhat short. We're in that odd period of the legislative session where bills have crossed over. And there's some expectations that, for example, if a bill is not heard in committee or heard in the original House of Origin, House or Senate, that by the time crossover week comes, if it hasn't been heard, it dies. Then they go through hearings in the other chamber, and this is, interestingly enough, Easter season. It's Resurrection of Dead Bill season. So there's a thing called a strike everything or a striker, and some of those ideas that didn't get through in the other house resurrect in the next house as under a different bill number. They say we're going to strike everything that's in there and replace it with this other language. This usually has some interplay with the budget. Sometimes people put their foot down and say, I will not vote for the budget unless I get my idea passed. It's a little hard and a little bit squirrely to figure out where these things come from. Some of them you can spot because a legislator will file a bill that is a technical corrections bill, and you go through and it'll replace his with his/her or something like that. And you can tell by looking at it, this is a striker in the making. Others a little bit more, they're supposed to somewhat pertain to the original bill number, but sometimes they just pop up and they're out of the blue. So we're watching that, CSA's watching that, ACO's watching that, trying to keep track of what may happen. The reason it interplays with the budget is a lot of these things have a price tag to it. I was just looking at the Arizona Capital Times. Budget talks have stalled, but the headline is that one of the representatives is starting to put his foot down on I-10 expansion, I-11 expansion, actually. Not surprisingly, it goes through his district. And so you see this kind of jockeying, and you'll hear a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth about how there's a budget deficit, how we can't afford conformity, or we can afford conformity. And then amidst all that, sometimes it breaks down from policy to district-specific funds. What will it take to get your vote for the overall budget? Maybe $1 million for this, or $2 million for that. And so we're starting to see some of that start to surface. However, the headline is still that budget talk stalled. The governor has sent over a budget proposal. She sent over a tax conformity proposal. Both were soundly and quickly rejected by the legislature, who says they're working on their own plans. I think any hope of an early resolution, at least at this point, is gone. I don't know how they get there soon enough. With the primary moved up to July, if these folks go all the way to the end of June, some of the people who are running either to cross houses or running for other state offices, they won't be able to start their campaigns in earnest till about, 3 or 4 weeks for the primary. That usually in most years puts some pressure on them to finish early. It doesn't seem to be working. The ideological divide is so entrenched right now that it's difficult. So we will continue to watch and monitor. There will be a couple of places in our budget where we may budget a little higher than we have to give us the wiggle room in case state comes down. For example, Supervisor Campbell and Chairman Gomez remember when they swept HERF funds. That hurts us in our road department. And so we'll be watching for those kind of things, and in some areas we may budget a little higher so that we have some ability to absorb unfunded mandates from the state. They tend to brag about cutting taxes and then balance their budget on the backs of counties and cities, and occasionally school districts. But with that said, there's not much we can report on out of the state budget other than they haven't got around to doing it. The other thing we are monitoring very closely is the situation in Iran. I think there's widespread hope that when this conflict resolves, that the strait will open up and the energy prices will drop dramatically. The stock market will likely respond well. Every time someone hints that there's an end to this thing, the stock market jumps up, and then when that deadline comes and goes, it drops again. I think that's just the way it's going to be for a time. For our primary concern for budgeting purposes is what will energy cost us in the next fiscal year? Whether that's diesel fuel, whether that's diesel fuel in the trucks that bring us our heavy equipment, or it's going to filter through every aspect of the economy, and so we feel a little bit like we're flying blind on trying to figure out how to budget for that. I think that will be the single largest challenge in our budget and hopefully it resolves soon for everyone's sake, not just oil prices, but for the entire world's sake. And we can start to see some kind of stability build in. The other thing, I checked the Consumer Price Index yesterday. The March numbers have not yet posted. I expect them probably in the next week or so. They will correct. So the numbers I reported on at our last meeting of 2.4% inflation has now been adjusted. They go through and fine tune the numbers. It was up to about 2.63. I think it would be naive of your staff's abilities to think that there's not going to be a inflation jump for the month of March and then going into April. How long that persists, what new inflation looks like, settles into, will be the question. The Fed has not yet reacted with higher interest rates, and depending on who you read, they're going to keep them. No one's thinking they're going to drop interest rates right now. What does that mean in our budget? Again, on the upside, it means we probably get a higher return on our very conservative investment portfolio conservative by law. We can only invest in safe things. Currently, U.S. Treasuries have not only been volatile, but they've been volatile going down, which means that interest rates are going up. And this isn't because of the Fed. This is because the market is saying we don't have confidence in U.S. Treasuries, which for decades was the single safest investment anywhere in the world. But as confidence goes down, prices go down, which means the interest rate to pay that bond off in 5, 10, or 15 years goes up. That's generally good for us on a revenue side. For years and years and years and years, we never really counted on interest rates as a revenue source. It was a trickle, and so we used it, but we didn't count on it. In more recent years, it has become a revenue source that actually adds some substance to our budget. So energy prices, inflation, and interest rates will be the things that we are monitoring closely over the next few weeks. I'll move this and then segue over to Bianca for the calendar, but we're proposing that we set budget work sessions at the time that the board would prefer to do that, the last week in April, and then the 2 weeks in May in between our regularly set board meetings. We may not need them, but if you'd set that, and we could do it at 8 o'clock, we could do it in the afternoon, whatever works for you. But essentially, we'd meet on the 20th, the 21st, the 28th, and essentially every week thereafter until the end of May. I think a lot of this is going to come into a lot more focus by the end of April, first week in May. But there's still some moving parts that we have not been able to nail down yet. And I have to doff my cap to Renee. He's been doing the lion's share of the preliminary budget development. He knows it inside and out. And so it's been a tremendous help to me. And in fact, that I've been a little help to him. He's not been a help to me. I've been a little help to him. But he's been carrying the lion's share on this one, and I appreciate that.
Up those magic numbers, Renee.
Any event, that's kind of where we stand on budget. I really hoped at this point we would have at least a clear direction on those three big factors that are going to affect our budget. We're just,
How can we?
it's unsettled at the moment. And like I say, that is no commentary at all on the rightness, wrongness, or anything else, other than uncertainty is difficult to plan for. And that's where we're at. We're in a state of uncertainty at the moment. Hopefully we get clarity soon. Perhaps even as late as this evening. We'll see.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Okay. Bianca, what's yours?
This Friday, the 10th, is county managers. Next Wednesday, the 15th, Eco Small Counties, the 16th, CSA. And our second board meeting for the month will be on the 21st. That's all I have for the month of April.
Well, you're not gonna mention Administrative Professionals Day?
On the 22nd, Wednesday. May 5th through the 8th, it's WIR conference. I did highlight our board meeting. It is scheduled for the 5th, and the second one is scheduled for the 19th. Those two I did highlight. I don't know
So we're gonna move the
where the
5th
board
to the
wants
12th
to.
and the 19th to the 26th?
Because of WIR?
Memorial Day?
What's that? Yeah, because of WIR.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that when I just mentioned the dates, so
Yeah.
we could easily bump down 2 weeks and still, we wouldn't meet, obviously when you're all gone to WIR, but we'd meet the other times.
So is that what we wanna decide? is-
How about if we move the second one down to the 27th instead of the 26th,
Do we have to check the schedule
the day after?
for this room, or?
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, for us, and Bianca, I won't speak out of turn, but I think we can manage that Tuesday meeting if that works, but that is up to the board. It's your meeting, you said it, and we'll do our best to work around it.
So we're gonna move the 5th to the 12th, right?
I think we nailed that one, yeah?
And then
and then move the, oh,
Nine-
the 19th. Oh, okay, then it goes to the 26th, and I'm proposing to the 27th.
Right.
Can we move that to the 27th?
I think we
For people
verify,
that- yeah, for-
verify
Yes.
the room availability,
Uh-huh.
and then if so, then I think that's yes.
Schedule it for the 27th, Wednesday.
Yeah.
But for sure, moving the 19th and the 5th out of there.
Okay.
And then I interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay. We needed to keep those out. 15th is county managers. Eco and small counties on the 20th, and Greenlee County is hosting small counties. CSA on the 21st. Our offices are closed on the 25th, Memorial Day. And then we'll go ahead and schedule our second board meeting on the 27th, Wednesday. And that's all I have for the month of May. June 2nd would be our first board meeting. The 16th would be our second board meeting. On the 17th, we have our LNA testing scheduled. That's when the Secretary of State comes to our county to do the logic and accuracy testing for our elections equipment for the primary and in July 21st, or on July 21st. Early voting starts on the 24th. ECO was to be determined. I don't have a date for that. No small counties or county managers for the month of June. Will ECO
Ca-
meet?
County managers will meet in June.
Oh, they will.
Um,
Okay.
It will be on the 12th of June.
Now, we're actually on recess at those months. Usually there isn't eco or small county going on.
Correct.
Yeah, no CSA, of course.
Managers meet, but the rest of the CSA associated functions generally take a break.
Unless something pops up, but right now, as it stands, there is no meetings.
No, and
Okay.
that's for July also, right?
Yeah.
This year's cruising, huh?
Now, in May,
Is it ever?
based on moving the board meeting to the 12th and to the 26th or 27th, and with ECO small counties, the CSA that Greenlee County is hosting, when would you want to put in the budget work sessions in May?
We would propose to hold the budget, it'd be a budget work session only on the 19th. We could also adapt to the 20th and 19th, and I would anticipate those are typically hour or less meetings. We could do them in the morning, we could do them in the afternoon, whatever works best for you, but that would free us up to then go down and prepare for the small counties we would host the next night.
Yeah.
So, also, we would have back-to-back Tuesdays. You're saying
Yes,
the 12th
one-
and the 19th?
One with regular meeting, and probably work session, then we'd reserve the 19th, if we need it, for a budget work session, then too.
So we may or may not need that,
Correct,
depending on how it goes.
correct. And a lot of that I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll know a lot more how much we'll need that additional direction.
Now, a little bit of clarity, if it's being decided if we need budget, so would it be possible that we might not have that second meeting in May?
We may not have the second budgetary meeting.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I know that, but I'm asking, instead of having back-to-back Tuesdays, if we don't need to meet on the budget, can we call off
The second meeting?
the second meeting? You know, we talked about going to one meeting a month
Correct.
at a certain time, but is that a possibility?
It's always a possibility. Some of the things, for example, we talked about today will need to be revisited as we, for example, if we hire to fill some of these positions. So it's difficult to say whether or not we can for certain cancel the second meeting, but that's certainly a possibility, and we can certainly work to try and keep as much on the earlier meeting as possible. I'm always hesitant this time of year simply because we've got budget adoption processes and
I get it.
so,
Well, just throw that into the pot too.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
See where we're at.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know, I mentioned, you talked about the times for budget work session. It's always helpful, obviously, when, if it is I mean, if it's an hour, that's fine, you know what I mean? But if we need, you know, a few hours, then if we did those in the afternoon, that would just be very helpful. That way we can just focus on that and finish out the day. David doesn't like that, but, you know.
I'm supportive of Supervisor Campbell on that.
Thank you.
And we can certainly schedule.
Order, come on, let's go. All right, anything for you guys? Okay.
I'll buy cookies or something. Okay?
Oh, gee,
All right?
no, you buy breakfast.
Pizza.
Dinner. How about
Dinner, yeah. Okay. So we're done with the calendar? Oh, we still have June, don't we?
No,
Oh,
she
we already
went through
did June. Okay, we're good, right? Everybody got everything straightened out? Remembered? Okay, we'll move into, thank you, Bianca, and thank you, Derek. We'll move into our next item of business, the consent agenda. I entertain for motion.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, so ordered. Okay, we will move into our next item of business, supervisor reports. Either one of you have anything to report?
I don't have anything at this time.
Real quickly, I'd like to again thank the county and thank especially Tony Hines and his group for the assistance with the Little League baseball field in the Duncan area. Season's going very well, and they have all the tools necessary to continue on with the season successfully. Everything's been very well received. The numbers continue to stay up, and actually they're adding numbers to the teams still. So been a very great success. Hopefully we can continue moving forward, and I'm here to support with whatever they need.
Hey, on that subject, do we have, did DVAC get their transformers up and running, or are we still running a generator? Okay,
Been on power for about 10 days.
okay, cool, thank you.
Great. And all I have is just to piggyback off of that, I see activity going on at the Loma Linda Park. Yay. So, anyway. All right, so we'll take a 10-minute break and then we'll go into budget session. Thank you, guys.
Guys?
Okay. We're back in session. And we're on our last item of business, budget work session. Derek, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to cover revenues to begin with. This is not new. You saw this the last time that we visited. I'm going to talk about it from a little bit different point of view. In forecasting our revenues for FY27, we have 4 major areas of revenue that represent about 88, give or take, % of our overall revenue picture. This covers, of course, 2 of our revenue streams with state shared sales tax and county shared county half-cent sales tax. PILT, we have tentatively budgeted at $1.5 million, and we will get a final number on that within the next couple of weeks. That generally arrives in June, but we'll know what that figure is sooner. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with Vanessa Fielder from CSA to talk about SRS timing and PILT effect. So we'll know how that affects it. But for now, we'll pencil it in at $1.5 million. Our primary property tax, last year, as you'll recall, we held our rate steady, even though our assessed value dropped slightly, so that meant that we collected about 3.7 in property tax revenues. Again, we've penciled that in for now, 3.7 and change, so it'll be somewhere between 3.7 and 3.8. I'm going to switch over to county half cents to begin with. For the last 2 years, we have projected 1.44 million derived from our half-cent sales tax. And as you'll see down by this number here, let me see if I can blow it up a little bit. We've been pretty close the last 2 years. Last year, we were slightly under our projection by about $27,000. This year, we are on track to be above by about $27,000. So we're going to propose to leave our projected half-cent sales tax revenue right where it's at. Having said that, things like a temporary construction project will create a bump in that, depending on where materials are sourced and how they're out there. There was a proposal that looks like it's lost its steam that would basically have designated that the place of origin would be the point of sale. It was an issue that started out, you'll go back 4 or 5 years, where there was what they called the Wayfair tax. And they basically said, Amazon, if you sell something here, you're going to pay sales tax on where that product goes. So if I order it at my house, then I pay sales tax based on Greenlee County and Duncan or Clifton sales tax rates. A lot of small businesses, on the other hand, they're selling out of a storefront someplace, and so that's where the sales tax is calculated. But then there's this middle ground where a local storefront is also selling some of their volume to other places, primarily in Arizona. So then these small businesses were left trying to figure out every little place in the world sales tax. The simple solution, because in some legislators' minds, all things begin and end in Maricopa County, was just to say, hey, wherever it starts from, that's the sales tax. Well, for rural Arizona, that hurts. That hurts a big way. It seems that has lost some steam. Of course, the time of year we're in, we're going to keep monitoring on that. But I think a projection of 1.44 million is probably a good peg. We may see some jump, but that's been, over time, relatively steady. You'll see that there's some months where there's been some highs and some months where there's been some lows. Pointing out, for example, our January revenue of 137 is well above that mark, but we had an 82,000 in April of last year. So we'll keep that revenue there. Our state shared sales tax, we've gone conservative the last 2 years, and we've kept that projection at 425 in fiscal year 25 and at 450 for fiscal year 27. Right now, Renee's initial projections have built the budget on $500,000 a month rather than 450 or 475. And what I'll point out here is that if you look over the last 12 months, so beginning in the March revenue, which we should receive either later this week or early next week for the current fiscal year. But if you look from here down the end of the last fiscal year through our current receipts, there's only been 3 months, these two and this one, that fell below 475. And there's only been one that was close to the 450, and that was a year ago. So we're seeing that most of our receipts are above 500,000 for the last 12-month period. Stretching back even a little bit further, most have been 475 or above, but in recent months, that trend has been, well above 500,000 a month. So we're proposing, at least initially, unless you would like to give us other direction, to build the budget on a $500,000 per month state shared sales tax revenue projection. We've talked about this forever and ever and ever. There's a lot of things that could change that, and if they do, if our revenues fall well below projection, we answer that with adjustments to our spending. That may be not filling positions that go vacant. That may be putting off, major purchases like cars or heavy equipment while we have time in the fiscal year to make those adjustments.
But even setting it at 500 is still conservative based on an average of 586, right? So
Correct. Yes, and you're exactly correct. With this this figure right here, that is still a conservative figure. There are a lot of dynamics right now in the copper market that suggest that we're on a good trajectory, and so I think that's fair. We have not seen the volatile up and down of the copper market in the last 5 or 6 years or more that we had traditionally seen in 3 to 4 year cycles before. Not only have those smoothed out somewhat, but we've also answered that with some budget mechanisms that steady our budget regardless of what's happening in copper. That's not to say there won't be some dips. There will be. Anyone who's been around this community long enough knows that copper goes up and it goes down. All commodities do. And as I've often said, as goes copper, so goes Greenlee County. And so we will continue to monitor that. But if you're comfortable with those budget assumptions, on those revenue assumptions, we will build around that framework. If between now and the end of the year it looks like the state shared sales tax revenue continues to be well above, we may adjust that slightly higher. But right now, I think we'll build on 500,000. Is all the board comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I'm listening to the brain trust over here, the finance guy.
Sounds like he was spot on.
All right. Yeah.
You'll recall it was his brain trust, the two of you who are here, that got us out of our expense limitation when he, from the back, said, go high. And we are not near our expense limit anywhere close, so.
Now the auditors are mad about it.
That's what they're there for, right?
We fortunately don't live to make them happy. Anyone does, I don't think. So I asked Renee to do a preliminary run, and Renee, if you'll clarify this, but we presented at our last budget work session CPI of 2.4%. So we've been playing with some numbers, and Renee, our cost per percent is roughly 90.
96, but we'll round up to 100,000 per percent,
And is that with EREs or not?
included with the ERs.
So essentially, for every percent,
100,000 per 1%, right?
what's that?
100,000 per
1%.
Right.
So if the board were to settle in on a across the board wage of 1% for everybody, it would add an additional 100,000 to our budget. If we looked at something of the last month's initial inflation rate of roughly 2.5%, that would cost us about $250,000 in additional ongoing expenditure for wages. We have addressed most, if not all, of the position changes. That's something Austin continues to monitor, based on position skill level requirements, availability, new positions like the judge proposed or that we've proposed. And so we'll continue to monitor that on a basis by basis. But as an overall projection, I think we will plan on it, if you could sort of bookmark in your mind, about $100,000 per percent.
Well, I just gotta say, I think, you know, if you made it equivalent to the inflation rate, then, and you give employees that, then that just keeps them the same. You know what I mean? It doesn't.
They're not losing ground.
They're not losing ground, but they're not gaining anything either, right?
That's true.
And when we talk about, you know, Greenlee County being a family and we taking care of our employees and that type of thing, I think we have to look beyond that 2.5% or whatever. You know what I mean? To be able to reward our employees. You know, so I think we ought to have that conversation that we are in that 3 to 5% range or something like that, and probably start there, rather than, you know, be equivalent to to keep it flat, because that's just keeping their head above water. You know what I mean?
That feels like the floor.
Yeah.
Not necessarily where we should be, but the floor.
Right.
In that discussion, as we talked about earlier, with the volatility in the energy markets right now, I don't get the impression, I mean, you all read the same news that I do. I don't get the impression this is going to be a years-long involvement.
Sounds like 8 p.m. tonight.
It may, the curtain may call at 8 p.m. tonight.
Yeah, it's all gonna blow up, that's what.
And then again, there may not be any energy in the room. Who knows? But given that, I think even if 8 p.m. tonight brings a close to the conflict,
Right.
fuel costs, energy costs are not going to drop immediately.
No.
I think we'll start to see a turn. It's been our experience as we watch this, that fuel prices shoot up and float down. And I think I think over time, fuel prices and energy prices may settle below their current pre-war levels. If shipping markets are opened up and some of the world gamesmanship goes away. But in the meantime, our employees will have at least a couple of 3 months where they're probably looking at above average inflation. And so your comments are well taken, Supervisor Campbell, that 2.4 is probably a floor. But if you'd like us to build on, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5%, we can build that and see how it plays out, and then based on that, and based on our revenue projections, tell you, does that work, does it not?
Just do it, and then we can compare
let's
it at the
build on
time.
Okay.
Just build it. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll look at it.
Then
And
we'll-
in
then
my
we'll know.
opinion, I think the floor ought to be, maybe start at the 3.5. You know what I mean? Because
Okay.
I think I don't know. It's my belief that we need to reward something, and even if a 1%, because really that would result in a 1% based on
Yes.
over and above in the inflation rate. So anyway, I don't know what you guys feel, but we can.
If you'd all like us to build it on 3.5, and then we can look at that.
Then we can adjust it based on $100,000.
Okay.
For
Put
an
it on the
additional
floor
percent.
right now, is that okay?
I like
Yeah,
that.
no,
That's
yeah.
exactly what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Okay.
Yeah,
I was trying to be conservative. But,
Renee's got his hand on the dial,
yeah.
and right now it's set.
He's got his
Okay.
hand on the
You
crystal
are good.
ball.
We will, Renee will do most of the work, but we will build on 4%.
4 sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
The last thing I want to talk to you about today, and this is where we'll spend the bulk of our time, hopefully it's not very long, is a review of our capital improvement process. So, blow this up a little bit. I've got stuff all over my screen. These are our current Tier 1 projects. And let me see. There, that's a little bit better. All right. A quick update. Our fairgrounds, the things I have in red are things that are either completely done or so close that they're almost done. So we've designed the fields. We've designed the fourth quadrant. We've got Christian Taylor and Justine Holguin working on the final layout of that fourth quadrant, which will be the splash pad, the playground, that park type quadrant there. The amenities we will nail down in the next couple of months about placement, size, and so forth of those amenities, which would include shade areas and picnic areas in the fourth quadrant. The ag area, of course, has already been done and completed. Nothing but very positive reviews at our last fair. Arena redesign is done. I think there will always be a discussion about arena dirt, but the design itself is pretty much done. In fact, David, have we also realigned the gates to better handle the stock now? When the college rodeo came through, we had some gates that didn't work quite as we had hoped, and so we redesigned those. It's been small stuff, adjustments, not major reconstruction. And so we have the secondary arena, of course, done. The kitchens, our kitchens are done right now. And then we've intentionally put off parking right now because we're going to lay some infrastructure. We want to lay some sewer lines down to take particularly our waste off of the park and ball fields area and run it over to the city sewer system.
Good.
And so Tony and his crew will be laying some elevation underneath the roads to begin with, but we were going to chip seal that area this year, but as we thought about it, it would be sad to chip seal and then dig it up. So we will push that into next year's the parking stuff. The entry exits, as we talked about already, we've been working. I say we, it's a good team, but Reed's been doing the heavy lifting, working with ADOT to get the design approved. They've been asking us questions about high use, what's our highest use and how will traffic be managed and so forth. So he's been interfacing there. I really applaud his foresight to say, let's look at getting a paver in place so we don't get to, late August and say you have the approval, but we don't have time. But like I said, those areas in red are where we're pretty much done. With the award of the bid today, we should have those other two fields planted and fenced within a month to 6 weeks, give or take. Shifting.
I guess got a check from Peterson, they'll have seed down in 2 weeks.
They'll have seed down in 2 weeks? Okay. In that case, we'll have cows grazing in 3 weeks. No. What we'll do, and we're
doing it before the sprinkler system.
I'll take his text at its word. What we will do is we will pre-plan as well. We've discussed this already, getting some caution tape or something so that when that seed goes down, we don't have well-intentioned parents parking on newly seeded fields. So, Mr. Peterson had told us a couple of months ago that he says in our area you plant grass about the same time you plant cotton. And I talked to one of our local cotton farmers and he plants mid-April. So that would be perfect timing. Loma Linda ball fields, the grass course has been installed, the sprinkler's been installed, fencing, the posts are starting to go up. And working with Tony and our contractor, we will be acquiring the additional materials to put up a backstop. The one we tried to transplant from Duncan isn't going to make it. It will not be steady if we try to reassemble it. So we'll have new materials for that part of the fencing. I've got this under the complete that really should be partially complete. Apparently I can't change it in real time. So,
Did you have to hit the enable editing up top?
there you go. Now look at that, even my colors have changed, so I think that's truly a partially complete, not a fully complete, but hopefully within the next couple of weeks, the field portion of that park will be complete. Tony was telling me yesterday that the Little League in this part of the county is redoing their teams, having a new draft. It sounds big to have a draft. but they'll assign teams. And so we should be ready for them to use that field. One of the things we've talked about repeatedly is in the Loma Linda Park area particularly is trying to get a sense for the use patterns and how people are using that park. One example is there's a tennis court we recently put a new net up on, and somebody knocked out one of the posts. And so, but we proposed to use some game cameras to get us an idea of where the park is utilized, how it's utilized, and how we can best prioritize development based on park utilization. We were discussing yesterday afternoon about there's probably a relatively inexpensive fix to take the fiber link that is at the landfill and bridge it over to the Loma Linda Ball Field Park area so we can get an idea and hopefully stop some of the vandalism we've seen recently, as well as get an idea of where people are, which parts of the park are being used. Do we, for example, do we repurpose the tennis court right now as a pickleball court, or do we rebuild that because the demand is there, and we're not sure. I think to overuse an overused phrase, I think once that field is up and ready and going, I think we'll see people migrating to that field to play. But we want to get an idea of exactly what the utilization is. Public Works Engineering Facility, again, the design and the outside shell is complete if you've been out there, as well as we acquired at almost no cost, very inexpensive, a bunch of millings from the Smelter Hill project, and those have mostly been spread around the building. Is there still a pile there, David? And do we have a specific use? Is it going to go around the building some more? Or
We're waiting for the poles to go
Okay.
away from Tucumala Co-op, and they took them down last week, so now we can go in and spread it out.
Spread the rest of that stuff. So by and large, the exterior will be done. It's the interior that we're working on here. This has been, we've developed some more detailed specs to give to contractors, so that we and they are on the same page as what we expect. Framing, drywalling, IT, whatever the case may be. In discussions with Reed yesterday, I think we may try, for example, IP phones as opposed to traditional phones. There's some things we're going to work on there, but you'll notice that essentially the exterior is done or all but done, and the interior is what we lack. On our Loma Linda park facilities, Supervisor or Chairman Gomez recently took me on a walk around the place. There's some signs of wear and tear. There's also been some recent signs of vandalism. We have been chipping away at those. We fixed one of the fans that would never turn off. Now it seems the other one doesn't want to turn off. Lighting out there, as Chairman Gomez had mentioned, was either on during the day and off during the night. We turned out that the timer is fried. And anytime I say something wrong, guys, jump in and correct me. But the timer for those lights was fried, and we've contacted an electrician to upgrade, beef it up, so that that doesn't burn out. The picnic pavilion is up. That's over the tables. There is convergent ideas on what to do with the barbecues. Chairman Gomez has suggested we put some sort of a roof over to cover from sun and rain. Others say that'll run smoke into the pavilion. So we haven't resolved that yet. But we're still looking at ideas of how to manage those barbecues which sit just outside the picnic pavilion, the picnic cover. But we shouldn't have to visit the cover itself in our lifetime. It's nice. It matches the playground cover. It looks sharp and very, very functional. Like I say, we've talked about the pickleball courts, and we can go out and at least preliminarily map out what footprint they would take. They take a lot less space than a tennis court, but I was thinking we'd rotate them and do 3 courts. But as Tony reminded me, we have basketball standards on either side. So if we reorient them, we'd be running a net right underneath the basket, which probably wouldn't work very well. Splash pad, we will learn a lot of lessons from our Duncan facility that we will then translate as we move towards a splash pad in that area. We've also made some repairs. For example, someone decided they needed the little baby swing, and so they ran off with it. That's been replaced or is about to be replaced. It's replaced.
You know, we need to add some more swings too. You see, when there's families there, there's only one set of swings, one swing, and there's 4 kids watching the kid that's on there. I mean,
We're
we gotta
teaching
get
them to
some more
share.
swings on there.
Yeah, we will look at that and look at some of those improvements. But yeah, there was one missing. We've got that repaired. We're looking at, like I say, we've moved the materials for the fencing. We moved it into the building there, I believe it was. Is that where we moved it?
Yeah.
And it's now that work is going forward. It'll come out, but it was right up against the fence line, easy to snatch if somebody decided they wanted their own chain link fence. Let's pivot to acquiring or facilitating the acquisition of land for housing. We've obviously identified the land. And Reed, if you could jump in here, we just got notice from State Lands recently on what we're doing next. Is that right?
Yeah.
And let the board know kind of where we're at on that.
So that state land wants us to rezone that land from RU 36, which is our default urban zone, to, I think it's a TR 22 zone that's more friendly to residential development. And we, probably at the next board meeting, we will come to you for permission or consent to start the surveys. That includes all the boundary survey, the phase 1 environmental site assessment, and then there's a cultural resources survey, very similar to what we did at the
That marks a significant, sort of advancement in the process. There's been a lot of administrative review at State Lands. Not a lot we could do at that point to push that along, but at this point where they're asking for those next studies, we can push that along a little bit. SR 22 is half-acre lots, right, as the default, roughly? That doesn't mean we're necessarily tied to that going forward. If you play this thing out and a developer comes in and says, I want to do this way, then, the county, we're the easiest county to zone, maybe in the entire nation, certainly in Arizona. And so if somebody comes up with a well-thought-out idea that increases density and has a way to handle waste and so forth, then all of those things could be, adapted as we go forward. But this allows the land to then be teed up for auction in a residential way. State Land likes it because it's gonna fetch a little bit more money for them, and it will raise the appraisal a bit. For us, it gives us still enough flexibility to continue to move forward in ways that'll make sense, or a developer will make sense. But that project, it feels like it's dormant for a while, but it's moving forward at this point. Expanding landfill is done. We acquired the land. It's now we received the deed a month ago? December. So 3 months ago. So that is done, and we'll take it off our list. The soapbox bridge design, this again, we don't have a whole lot that we do on this. I mean, Reed monitors it, but we have a grant, and I put engineering design 60%. Maybe you could explain what that means, Reed.
So the designer submits plans state out in stages, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a 15%, a 30, a 60, a 90, and a 100%. So we're a little over halfway through if you want to look at it that way. David and Mike and I met out there, and we got some comments for the designer based on the 60% plans. And we're just tromping along. So the window for CDS funding occurs around late February, March, and those plans will get to 100% well before 2027, February, March. And the idea would be that we would apply for CDS funding and give them 100% plans, excuse me, along with our application, which is shovel-ready project. If you have a shovel-ready project, it really bumps it up in the rankings. But we would like you, the board, to be supportive of that effort through letters to Congressman Siscotti, who's on the
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's again, a lot of that is out of our control. We count on Reed to interact with ADOT when interactions and the engineering design contractor when that action is necessary. But there's not much we can do to push that much quicker. Is that accurate?
It is. So when you get federal transportation dollars from the federal government, they have to go through ADOT. And I'm gonna get on a soapbox here a little bit. The estimate for that bridge replacement is at $2.5 million. That is a ridiculous
Ridiculous, yeah.
amount of money to build a 4-barrel concrete box culvert. These two gentlemen to my right
Yeah.
could build that box culvert
For $50.
probably $500,000 and have money left over for ice cream.
Yeah.
But it's just the world we live in. ADOT chews up so much of that
Crazy, man.
funding and bureaucracy. And it's just how we deliver projects in this day and age.
We, Chairman Gomez and I sat through a very frustrating meeting. We were actually the smallest voice in the room. Everybody in the entire Graham-Greenlee County has horror story after horror story of the time delays, the design delays, the construction delays. It's a wonder we build anything.
And doing things that they didn't even want, and they did, and they could have spent the money elsewhere, and oh my God, man, it's just a,
So, yes, we will certainly, but the design is moving along, and so then when we get that done, Reed has become somewhat expert in putting together congressionally directed spending requests, and they go through a hopper, and then those, like I say, and you can measure it basically in whether the senator or representative will be able to have something to, put his feather in his cap, say, I helped fund that bridge, that road, that park, whatever. And so I do think a shovel-ready project does rise to the top of the heap because it's a quick result for the political side of the equation. So, lastly is our landfill commercial and demolition cell. I think our engineer and our landfill director are finally on the same page as to how long it's going to last. Not as long as we had hoped, but nevertheless,
Did you say it didn't last as long as we had hoped?
we hope it would last 30 years. But no, we got a good life
That's
out
what
of
the
it.
cell, I'm sorry.
We have been vigorously defending against railroad ties in the C&D cell after the initial dump. And so, but no, it has been managed very, very well. But we will need to do the dig for the new C&D cell in 27. And again, I'm going to count on you guys, but I understand the engineering will be for twice the hole we're going to dig, and then we'll only dig half, and then come back in another 5, 6, 7, 10 years and dig the second half. But the engineering will be done for the whole, sort of a double cell. You'll recall last year we did 300 by 300 by 30 feet deep, and so.
why don't we prepare for those ties for the next time where, give them to the public.
That's what happened the second time when they approached us, and we made it very clear we wouldn't accept their ties. They gave them away to ranchers. They gave them away to
Yeah.
anybody who wanted
Yeah.
one. Yeah, I think they shredded some. They were not usable. But yeah, if you drive up and down the county, you'll see little stacks of ties here and there and everywhere.
So will.
But the first time
do they give us, a heads up that they're gonna be hauling all that stuff in there?
the first time they showed up with them, as I recall, and we hadn't thought through it. We didn't have any idea how many, and that was within a month or two of when we started using this. I mean, that was the first thing going in, and so it caught us off guard, and it chewed up a lot of space.
It's so expensive to build these cells.
I know.
You fill them up with ties.
Ties, yeah.
For the money we make with the ties, it doesn't equal out to how much it costs to build one, so
Right.
it just doesn't pay off for them.
Well, why don't you get a hold of the department up there that's responsible for that
This was
hauling of
Arizona
those ties?
Eastern
Yeah.
that dumped them on us.
Company, not.
And
Oh, it's not the mine. then.
no,
Arizona Eastern
Oh.
Railroad.
Yeah.
Well, then that's who we need to get a hold of and not let that happen again.
Derek, if I could chime in, to be clear, what Derek was saying is that second time that they generated a
We actually reached out first because I happened to be driving to work and I saw they were replacing ties. I says, we're gonna have another dump.
Yeah.
And so we reached out and said, no, don't bring them.
Those ties went away with no involvement from the county, so it worked out really well. as Derek
Right.
said.
Okay.
So that issue kind of took care of itself.
And we will make sure that's clear. I don't know when they'll replace ties again. I think they went all the way from the state line up to the York. I mean, they were replacing ties for a lot of miles. 15,000 ties or some huge number. We said,
Is
not-
there a
not-
certain individual that's responsible for this area from that
From Eastern
organization?
Arizona?
Eastern Arizona?
There is, but on that type of project, I'm not sure it's the regular, because, you know, we have what, quarterly meeting with them on different issues?
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 Arizona Eastern employees that sit in on those quarterly meetings, and any one of those 3 would be able to address this subject or point us to the right person within their organization.
Yeah, we should reach out to him.
Had we not seen them replacing ties, physically seen them,
Yeah.
we would probably have been confronted with a truck full of ties at our doorstep, so to speak, before we said, no, you can't come in. So we were able to catch them. That sounds bad. We observed that there were gonna likely be a stockpile of ties, and so we moved forward that way. But like I say, we need to start digging soon. By the way, we will use as funding for this the soils money we received the soil dumping from the soils project that FMI conducted here in the Clifton-Morenci area. We have been sitting on that fund, and that will be our primary source of revenue to dig the hole. Which, 500,000, is that what we think? 1.2 million we got up there. It's a lot of money to dig a hole. What's our best guess?
They were, well, I think it was $4 a yard last time.
400,000 last time, so we're probably gonna be up.
Yeah, $500,000.
Okay. We've got penciled in there 1.2 million. I don't think it'll take that amount. We should have the funding to cover it from that stockpile or that set aside money from the soils project. So it shouldn't hit our regular budget. We'll pivot now to the add-ons I've got down at the bottom. Some of these have come off our schedule too. Some of them have sort of forced their way to the forefront, given some urgency we've seen. We budgeted roughly 1.5 million last year for capital projects. We will likely fund that. We will budget more in that fund this year than we have. Our actual cash balance in there is in the neighborhood of 5 million, give or take, but we have not budgeted at all. This year we'll probably budget a higher percent because as we work through these, you'll see some are already on our forefront and some we need to know exactly where we're at. Let me start with add-ons 1 and 2 because they're somewhat interrelated. We've had a couple of leaks here in the building recently that have raised the profile of urgency on our plumbing in this building, not the older building, but primarily in this building. We had a length of pipe about 2.5, 3 feet long that had the weirdest break I've seen. I'm not a plumber, but even Tony was impressed, and Brian. It had a crack that ran right down the side of it. So if you picture the pipe, it was cracked in the side, and it ran the length of this 2 or 3 foot long piece. But you look,
Galvanized pipe? Cast iron?
cast iron, and you looked at the pipe, and it was pretty clean inside, and the metal around it did not look eroded at all. I mean, the best way I could describe it, it looks like if you ever seen a tree that's been struck by lightning, it just made a line, but it cracked. And so they chased down why it was leaking. There were some turns and stuff, but it did leak into the women's restroom as the source was up here in the health department. We also recently had a very inventive way to manage that leak. If you happen to be in the building, there was a bucket taped-ish to a pipe that was leaking for a few days, and then a hose running out of the bottom bucket into a sink. It worked. It was
That could work indefinitely.
and if the building is as bad as we think, you may see buckets all over the place.
Is access easy to all that piping, Tony? No, it's all hidden away. It's all hidden away, huh?
It's all tucked up in there.
Whoa.
That leak appeared to be a failing of the sweat weld, the sweat joint on copper pipes. And so what those two incidents have highlighted for us, and Tony and Brian have been aware of this for some time, is that we need to have an evaluation of the plumbing in this building primarily. It is older than the plumbing in the neighboring building, which was redone when we remodeled the old courthouse. And so we need to look at it. It may be, and the reason I put evaluate re-plumb is if we find someone who can evaluate that, and they say, hey, you're one bad day away from a dozen leaks in your building, then we need to be ready to re-plumb the place, whether that's through PEX or more copper. I don't know. I'm not a plumber, but and I don't have a number over here to fill in for you to tell you what that might run, but very likely more than a couple $100,000 if we re-plumb. But we would like to add that 1A evaluation and possibly replumbing of the entire Clifton Annex building onto our tier 1.
And are we talking potable water and sewage? Is that piping? Yes. Both? Wow.
And this is where it ties into 1B. We're also talking about HVAC water. So we heat and cool the building, both buildings, with a boiler and a cooling tower, a chiller that runs cold water through the building and then alternatively hot water through the building. We have air handlers, which if you want to see one, we can walk across the hall and Tony can show you one, or one right here in the closet. They amount to radiators or condensers where you run cold water through and then blow air through it. Some of those are end of life, some have already stopped working. But one of the challenges is that our shutoff valves, and again, Tony, you jump in any time and correct me, but the shutoff valves don't work. They've been there for 40 years plus, and sometimes they don't shut the water off. And so that presents a lot of problems. If we have a leaky air handler, it's hard to isolate it. Some of these things are it's like they built an air handler and then built a bread box around it, so you really can't get to it very well. They're in teeny tiny spaces. Others are a little easier to manage. But again, we need to likely do an evaluation of both the plumbing and the HVAC side of those air handlers and either start replacing them all. We have about 40 in the two buildings. Or work on a priority plan to say, well, let's replace 5 or 10 a year, every year for the next period of time. But again, a thorough evaluation. We talked about the controls that control it, and maybe moving to a more universal control system that's not as expensive to maintain. But and again, I don't have a price for that, but we would like to move that to our tier 1 because of the potential urgency. It may be something we can, like, say, chip away at, a fourth this year, a fourth next year, and so forth. But we don't know yet. And so we'd like to add that to our tier 1.
So are we gonna do that in-house, or are you gonna hire someone to come in professional? You're gonna hire somebody? Yeah.
On both instances, the evaluation would be done by people who know that trade better than we do. I think we've got the internal capacity to look at an evaluation and see if they're blowing smoke at us, but to be able to crawl in and evaluate, like I say, sweat joints and integrity of pipes and stuff, we would definitely hire outside.
Okay.
I've got add-on number 2 is courthouse paint and lighting and shading and so forth. So this is our historic courthouse, the one out front. I did not know until we started looking at the lighting question last holiday season that those apparently really tough looking, red things are galvanized drainages. They're a facade. And so it looks like you got like 4x4s that they're built on. They're not. And getting to it is a really kind of a challenge because the only kind of lift you could fit through the cement gate can't get close enough to the building to, in some cases it could, but it'd be setting up on grass. In other cases, you've got a ramp in the front of the building that you'd have to figure out how to reach over. On the alley side of the building, there's all kinds of electrical wires. And so it is a challenge. But we figure if we're gonna paint and maybe make some repairs, that's the time we do lighting while we have a crane. And so we would like to and I think it's gonna be more expensive than we think. We have shading over the historic courthouse facing west. Those awnings, they, how old are they? Tony, you have any idea? The cloth awnings over the windows?
They're starting to fade, unravel.
Any idea how old they are?
Probably 12, 13 years when we redid them last.
We discovered with one of them that it caught the wind and pulled the, as Tony described it, soft brick fascia off the wall. But we would look at that project as sort of one project, lighting, shade, painting that outside. It's obviously, if you look at it, the paint is probably past end of life. But it's, the only time it's been painted is when they redid the courthouse, right?
Yeah.
25 years ago? In that neighborhood? So, I may have been the only one around when they did that. Dang, I got old. So, you've heard about the presentation on the courthouse security. Again, hats off to Judge Ford. He's thought this through. But I think that $300,000 may be higher than we need, but may not be. And then, of course, the last one on this ad list is historic courthouse Wi-Fi upgrade. The BITS team did a good job of going and installing access points. What we found is that the cable that supported it wasn't sufficient for what they needed. And so, whereas the courts had hoped to move into the 21st century with digital evidence and other upgrades, we haven't been able to do it. The internet over there is spotty. And so we would need to look at upgrading the Wi-Fi, which may mean pulling cables, may mean a wireless solution that's differently supported. We don't know exactly what that would do, but it would allow that courthouse to enjoy the same type of Wi-Fi that we enjoy over in this annex. We can work on fleshing out some projected numbers on these projects, but I wanted to pitch these ideas and see if these are all okay with you to add. Most of these will not be done with in-house resources. Most of these would be done on the add-ons with external contractors.
We need to get rolling on this stuff. It's gonna come back and bite us.
Yes. Well, and the intersection, for example, like with plumbing, it's not just that we'd have to re-drywall our walls and paint. We've got all kinds of electrical and IT in the walls, around the walls, in the ceilings. So we would stand to lose a lot more than just, drywall and hard repair. It would be all of the IT stuff. That's the one that worries me the most. If we should spring a leak in our IT area with our servers, we're in a deep hole.
Yep.
Deep hole. So, do you want us to add these to our tier one? That becomes the direction we're asking.
I believe we should.
I
We
think
should. We have to.
we're doing a lot of work, improving the infrastructure of Greenlee County, but we need to take care of what we have to take care of, you know what I mean?
Yes.
This building, so.
To quote a former chairman, Mr. Lunt, if you take care of it, you don't have to buy it. Well, he had a phrase, we heard it every budget year. Take care of what you got.
And make sure it's sustainable.
Sustainable.
Yeah.
I think with this, what we'll do is obviously we'll add to our overall cash of capital projects, and then we will budget sufficiently so that these projects can be done.
I had a quick question on the first one, the fairgrounds park redesign. I know that we're talking about that fourth quadrant and looking at kind of developing that and stuff. Where are like the restrooms at? Is that part of the fourth quadrant, or is that, because I think that would be a priority. It's how you eat an elephant, right? One at a time. And when you're looking at all of this, we've got the multi-purpose field that's going to be nailed down. The other ball fields are going to be nailed down. But I think in pieces, I think getting the restroom there is more important than getting a pickleball court or a splash pad. You know what I mean?
I agree.
And so I think getting that basic infrastructure. So, we think about amenities, right? And, that's the elephant. But breaking down those amenities, we got to prioritize those. So I think getting the restrooms there, concessions, whatever we're thinking about, but that's more important than taking that you know, the pickleball courts and or the splash pad, that could be in the next year or the next year, you know what I mean?
I think our engineer ran to likely go get a map.
Ah.
He also gave us that same direction in our internal working group that we meet sometimes once a week, sometimes every other week. But that was the thing we first tackled, is we've got to place that building and build infrastructure to that building. So we have placed that building in the fourth quadrant. And so if you've been down there, imagine directly behind the backstop, directly opposite, going into that lowest quadrant. We'll build it up to essentially where that building, concessions, restrooms, storage, will be directly behind the backstop and on the same grade level as that. We've
Kind of
talked
where they had set up doing their own little concessions when we were
Yes,
down there for the
exactly.
ribbon cutting.
very much
Right
so.
there,
Yeah.
where the generator was.
Yeah.
And the building will roughly resemble the one at the County Fields in Morenci, except it'll be longer. We'll go with, you know, genderless restrooms, you know, the kind that are single person at a time, and have plenty of storage for, you know, Little League equipment, for our maintenance equipment, all of that stuff. So that was our very first placement, if you will.
And one comment I always hear, and is that if you're building it and you're building it for storage, especially in a ballpark area, whatever you think it should be, double it. Yeah. So whether that's, you know,
Reed, do you remember off the top of your head what the dimensions of that building are?
40 by 60.
Is it 40 by 60?
Oh, wow, that's a big one.
And then we're talking, do we decide on 20-foot awnings around? So that'll give people a place to congregate under the shade, and give us room to build a little knee wall or a shade, what would you call it, a privacy wall in front of the restrooms, that type of stuff. And,
Well, I just wanted to
put a
mention
few
that.
benches and maybe a picnic table underneath it as well.
because you think about it in the whole amenities and the whole of the, you know, that other quadrant and everything, then that's a whole lot to bite off. But I think prioritizing getting the restrooms in there is number one.
We agree.
I believe Ron has a 40 by 60 with 20-foot wraparound needs, and I think we had 6 restrooms, individual restrooms set up on either side, is how it's laid out.
Good.
And you're probably looking on moving on that with the goal of having that done in 26, right?
Yeah, and we've talked about design. We would like to build it in a way that is aesthetically nice. Again, pointing to Loma Linda Parks, those two structures, they just look really good. They match each other. They match the overall aesthetic of the park, and we're looking for a similar type of build out there. So it'd be very functional, but also aesthetic, so that it looks not like we built a ball field around a barn.
Mm-hmm.
Not look like that. So,
Okay.
but yes.
I just wanted to mention it.
Let me turn real quickly to tier 2. There's a couple things on here that I've highlighted in red because they don't really fit the criteria for capital. Their life we intend to be longer than 5 years, but they are unlikely to surpass the $100,000 threshold. So, for example, when we get ready to replace the crow's nest at the arena, and even if we place a second crow's nest on the secondary arena, those are going to be Connex build-out boxes. They're not likely to run us, you know, $100,000 plus. There'll be some connections that need to be made, electrical and so forth. But in short, that's going to be a placement of a Connex on top of a structure. Some of the stuff we can likely repurpose. For example, we have some posts that were taken out of the old shade structure at Loma Linda that we may well put the crow's nest for the second arena on top of, and we still have those. But because of the cost on that, it's not likely a capital project, so I'll remove that from the tier 2. The other one is the horse stalls. Our rodeo contestants really liked. They look temporary, but the way that our road crew put them in, they'll once we place them, they'll stay there. But they really like those. They'll eventually have some shade over them, and so. But again, the cost of that. What did that group cost us last year? About 24,000. Do you recall when we ordered the stalls? It was under 25, and we had 27 stalls, I think it was. And so again, those are relatively inexpensive. Our road crew assembled them, put them on site. We may well position those in a way that sort of naturally protects our well heads. We'll talk about placement of them, or which maximizes our parking, whichever one we can do best. But I'll take that off of it because it's just not that big of an expense. Courthouse improvements have moved from tier 2 to tier 1. Remodel of the fairgrounds buildings. I've highlighted here replacing the siding. The county was recently awarded an $80,000 or $88,000 grant from $86,000 grant from the United Way. We talked a year and a half ago with our 4-H partners. You'll recall that they have a building that is attached to our exhibit building. It was built in the late 40s, early 50s, primarily with labor and donated materials of 4-H parents. And so there's an agreement from two entities, neither of whom had contract authority, but they agreed that they would build it. And so it's always been treated as the 4-H building, attached to our property on our land, but we've stayed out of it. And it's created some problems. Some of the utility, like electric and plumbing and stuff, hasn't always got the attention needed. And so that kitchen, it's time for it to go. So we, working with our 4-H partners, we made the application, 4-H supported it, and we received a United Way grant to replace that building. As part of that, Tony had the foresight to say, let's not just replace it, but let's blend it into that side of the building. And so the siding on the east side of the exhibit building would be then replaced to match this new 4-H building. Again, with modern modular type stuff, steel buildings, we can build it very, very inexpensively.
Metal siding.
With metal,
Yeah.
yes. And it will, interior will look a lot like the kitchens that we have underneath the grandstands.
Yeah.
So instead of being the oldest, least attractive kitchen, it'll still have the prime spot for 4-H, and it'll be upgraded to be the newest, nicest kitchen on the grounds. We'll expand a little bit side to side to give them some storage. What we would do is this would essentially be the 4-H kitchen, but if there was an event where they didn't want to do a concession, they would have a place to lock up all of their stuff and then use that. Some other local charity could use it at a different event, or not, but at least we'll build it with that in mind. But it'll be the 4-H kitchen, and we don't care if they put a 4-H clover on it, or we want to make sure that we could maintain it, because obviously if it burns down for an electrical short, so does our exhibit building. And so we wanted to be able to do more regular maintenance. We would take over ownership and responsibility for maintenance, but the space would remain with 4-H. And it'll again be an overall improvement to the eye appeal of the facilities. Other than that, we propose that the other one, tier 2, we continue planning for, but we've got a lot on our plate in tier 1 that we're trying to finish up. Obviously, on these things, I present them because if you have a project or an idea or a reordering of our priorities, this is the board's capital improvement program, not staff's. And so if you tell us to reorder or rearrange, then we will certainly take that direction. And I will send this to you so that you can each review this and in a subsequent work session give us direction according to the board's desires.
Let's get everything completed on tier 1 first.
That's sort of our thought internally as well. Tier 3, of course, is our somewhat of a wish list. We don't spend active time on these things. Perhaps someday in the future we look at a 3rd floor annex because our old courthouse just completely outlives its lifespan. We've gotten 25 plus years out of it with the remodel they did, but it's still an old building. And if you look carefully as you walk out the door, you'll see some signs that it's an old building. If you look at all of your 80 and 90-year-old relatives, they may still be going, but they're still 80 and 90. Well, we're at 115 plus. So, but this one, again, look it over. I will provide a copy of this to each of you. But that's essentially our capital improvement plan. We will reorient it according to the direction you've given us today. And of course, if you give us more direction in the future, we'll reorient it again.
Go for it.
Okay?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Just one thing too, that Ward's Canyon ball field down there,
Yes.
he plans on blading it or whatever. I haven't driven by there in some time, but.
We talked about this yesterday, Tony and I did.
Okay.
We've been given a little bit of time because the Little League is taking a little time to reorganize themselves, but
Yeah.
it should be ready. We're gonna try and direct all the traffic off the road down into that, what used to be a second field.
Yeah.
And then if they wanna park up above and look down, we can probably facilitate that too, but we wanna get them off the road.
I think practice will start today, so.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
And that's all I have for our budget work session. I appreciate the direction you've given us, and we can go from there.
Good deal.
All right. Well, with that said, did we already go, yeah, we went over supervisor reports, okay?
Yes,
well,
sir.
This meeting's adjourned.